Hello and welcome. Thank you for joining this Rutland training session today. We'll just give a few more minutes for the last attendees to join. Okay, great. Really good to see so many joining today. Thank you for signing up for this Rutland training session on fire door compliance. Compliance is always a burning question, and we get a lot of questions almost every day around ensuring the fire doors are fit for purpose and compliant with legislation. So we thought it was worth introducing some regular training which is accessible to all and the key topics that come up over and over again. Before we start, by way of introduction, I'm Neil Smith, Director of Certification and Compliance here at Rutland. As many of you will know, Rutland is a leading UK brand of door closers. We're a lot younger than other well-known manufacturers, but we've grown fast and brought several unique products to market. That rapid growth is fueled by our underlying purpose to enhance life safety at every fire door. It's that core purpose that drives me to continue to expand my knowledge and understanding both of existing and likely future legislation, as well as to explore ways that we can enhance life safety beyond just simply complying. I should say that I'm not an accredited fire trainer, inspector, advisor or government appointee. So all knowledge passed on in these training sessions is based on practical experience in the field, working and liaising closely with all the sorts of people I've just mentioned, and having supported many door manufacturers navigating their way through testing and certification programs. So, without further ado, let's get onto this topic. So, we're looking at the subject of UKCA and its relationship with fire door compliance. Let's kick off with a quick question to everyone present, and you can give your answers via the little pop-up that will appear on your screen. So does every fire door need to be UKCA marked? Yes, no, not sure, or comment. Okay. Quite a mix of questions coming in. Yes, no, no, not sure, yes, not sure, no, yes, not sure, yes. And a few interesting comments too. James W. I had thought so, but I've realised that there aren't UKCA marked internal fire door sets available. So that's left me puzzled. Thanks, James. That's the confusion we're hoping to clear up today. Brian B. I'd like to know how UKCA relates to the relevant BSEN standards. Yes, that's a good question, Brian. One that we should cover off in this session. Karen M. Why can't legislation around something this critical be simpler and more specific? That's a $1 million question, Karen, and not one I'd better get sidetracked onto. I agree with the sentiment of your question, though. Okay, well, that probably confirms that there's still a fair bit of confusion around UKCA marking of door sets and ensuring compliance with fire doors. As some of you commented, a key difference is whether the fire door is internal or external. So let's cover that point firstly. All UK external fire door sets must be UKCA marked. It became a legal requirement in November 2019 for them to be CE marked, and the CE mark was officially superseded by the UKCA mark from 1st of January. But the same legal requirements were carried forward for external fire door sets to be marked accordingly. So external door sets are defined as those that separate the external climate, rain, snow, from the internal climate. There are various qualifying criteria to achieve the UKCA accreditation, but two essential elements are that the door must fulfil the requirements of BS 14351, EN 14351 Part 1 and EN 16034, the two harmonised standard and product standard known as designated standards in the UK since Brexit. That CE and UKCA marking takes as proof of quality and performance. BSEN 14351 Part 1 essentially stipulates the material specification requirements for windows and external pedestrian door sets of different performance standards, and the manufacturer can actually select which of those performance conditions they want to test their door set to meet. BSEN 16034, which the 1634 fire testing sets down the test conditions that the fire door sets must perform to, and the door criteria that manufacturers have selected to test to. So this all makes it pretty clear what constitutes a compliant external fire door set, even if achieving the accreditation is onerous. But now on to internal fire door sets. Internal door sets are another story. Despite often being almost identical in the case of entrance doors to apartments, they don't have to be UKCA marked or CE marked for the simple reason that they can't be. By strange legal twist, there is no fully adopted, harmonised or designated standard that covers internal door sets that UKCA or CE can reference. While EN 14351 Part 2 does cover internal door sets, and it was approved by the European Committee for Standardisation, the standard was never actually listed on the European Journal and therefore doesn't have legal force yet. So, at present, internal fire door sets are never UKCA marked or CE marked for that matter. The essential standards that govern internal fire door sets are building regulations, approved document B, volume 1, dwellings, which in turn points to the fire test standards BSEN 1634 Part 1 and BS 476 as a proof of fire door performance, and third-party accreditation of ongoing door set manufacturer is widely regarded as best practice, but I'll cover that in a bit more detail later on. Let's take a look at the essentials of what approved Doc B stipulates for fire safety requirements. So single or two-storey dwelling houses simply require easy exit via escape windows or doors and a standard internal stairway where required. Dwelling houses with one storey more than 4.5 metres above ground level, which essentially means a third storey or second floor, must have either A, a protected stairway providing 30 minutes fire resistance that extends to a final exit and gives access to a minimum of 2 independent fire protected ground level exits. All such stairways and exit routes would require FD30 fire door sets internally, or B, an alternative escape route, which as such an external escape staircase, and the regulations also stipulate the conditions that an external escape stair must meet. Dwelling houses with further stories above ground level, that's above 7.5 metres, have additional requirements relating to access to fire protected escape routes, and that's stipulated in the regulations, but the principles are the same. And then there are specific regulations covering loft conversions, which include requirement for fire doors of minimum 20-minute fire resistance or existing doors to be upgraded to provide the same protection. It's worth noting that a fire door exiting onto an external escape route is a prime example of a door set that would need to be UKCA or CE marked, because it is an external door separating the indoor climate from the outdoor elements. But it wouldn't need to be fire rated door in that situation, mostly because it's an egress door opening outwards. So what if the legal logjam was to clear and EN 14351 Part 2 was listed on the European Journal, providing a harmonised standard for Europe and something that UK could adopt as a designated standard for the UK to refer to? In the first instance, it would indicate that EN 16034 would be applied in conjunction with EN 14351 Part 2 to all internal pedestrian fire door sets having the resisting and or smoke control characteristics. And it would also set 14351 Part 2 standards in relation to other characteristics such as impact resistance, burglar resistance, reaction to acoustics and other things. But then in all likelihood it would clear the way for the UK government to stipulate that internal fire door sets maybe should be UKCA marked as well, in line with the external door sets. And if they did, we may assume it would then become a legal requirement to fulfil the requirements of EN 14351 Part 2 and 16034. As we've just said, the door set manufacturer decides what they choose to test from in the classifications in 14351 Part 2. With all this confusion around compliance and the potential for legislation to keep changing, what is the best way to ensure that we are specifying what will remain compliant? And if you're a door manufacturer, to be sure that you are developing and certifying or testing that something that will meet requirements well into the future. External door sets are simple. The legislation is already pretty clear, ensuring compliance can be based on the requirements of UKCA. Internal door sets, our recommendation would be to look at the likely path of legislation change and start working towards door sets that would fulfil that legislation. In simple terms, that means go for doors that would meet material construction standards of 14351 Part 2 and ensure that they are tested to the standards of EN 16034 and the fire test standard EN 16334 Part 1. As these two standards are what would likely underpin UKCA accreditation, this then helps to increase the likelihood of compliance, even if UKCA accreditation were to become a legal requirement. The final word on third-party certification, which I mentioned earlier. While it isn't a compliance requirement as such yet, opting for door sets, internal door sets that are third-party certified by independent UKAS accredited certification bodies is one of the most assured ways of maintaining a standard of fire safety, because that's really beyond reproach. This is because it ensures that ongoing auditing of the manufacturing process is carried out and that quality of the door sets continues to reflect the standard that was originally tested and certified. And that can only enhance life safety at every fire door. That concludes this brief training session. We can now flip this over to a brief Q&A session, and I'll just aim to field as many questions as I can. If I'm not sure about the answer, I will make a note of the question and refer it to one of the many expert contacts and come back to you with the answer. So our first question is looks like from a door set manufacturer. How do we write a declaration of performance for UKCA marked Doorsets? Well, it's a good question. The EN 14351 Part 1 product standard for external pedestrian doorsets has got an annex at the back. I just can't remember the actual number or letter of the annex, but there is an annex which I've read through, and it gives an example of two or three examples of declaration of performance, how it'd be laid out and the classification recorded. And there is also some guidance in the standard 16034 fire testing standard of what to include in the E30, E60, E90 ratings. So you have to use both the EN 14351 Part 1 and the guidance in that annex and the 16034 for the fire aspect of it, and you can combining the product standards for a pedestrian, an external pedestrian doorset, and then applying in the fire rating. So yeah, I hope that answers the question. We have actually got some templates that we've worked on with doorset manufacturers, so if anyone wants to ask us after the webinar, please be free to get in touch. So the second question, they're saying, we have decided to specify all our fire doors to be tested to EN 1634, looks like a housing association, instead of BS 476, but doorsets are still arriving on site, not UKCA marked. Should we be condemning them? It depends if they are external doorsets or internal apartment doorsets. So the question is, where are the doorsets going? They may be identical doorsets, but only if they're external doorsets can they be UKCA marked. That's separating the internal climate from the external climate. Then yes, they should be UKCA or CE marked in that situation. So if they're internal doorsets, there's no legal mechanism to UKCA or CE mark. So no, you shouldn't be condemning them if they're for internal. So this third question is, some of our doorsets are arriving with both third-party certification and the UKCA mark on. Is this correct? I think that's what the question is. It's a very good question, and I have been asked that before. What I would suggest is that you can't put UKCA marked doorsets internally because there's no legal mechanism to UKCA mark internal doorsets. So strictly speaking, that UKCA marking shouldn't be used for internal doorsets. Likewise, if the doorset was being fitted externally, you can't use third-party certification to support that doorset. So I hope that answers that question. So this question is a good one and comes up often. PAS 24 is the security standard that we've been going by in the UK here. Can that form part of UKCA marking? No, like I say, it's a really good question, and PAS 24 is a British standard. It doesn't form part of the European standard which we've adopted for UKCA marked doorsets. So the answer to your question is that the labelling for PAS 24 or secure by design should be separate from the labelling for the UKCA mark. The UKCA mark takes the EN burglar resistance classification. So PAS 24 does not form part of UKCA marking. To answer your question, there should be distinct separate labels on the doorset when they arrive on site. So you've got your UKCA mark label, and separate you'd have your dual certification label for if it's a secured by design doorset, PAS 24. Hope that makes that clear. So that completes this training session on UKCA and CE marked doorsets. We do hope this gives clarity. Compliance with fire doors, whether it's the testing, the certification and the ongoing maintenance, is absolutely crucial. There's a fine line between life safety and tragedy, so it's worth getting it right. And we do look forward to delivering further training sessions around fire door safety. It's all part of this journey of enhancing life safety at every fire door. So thank you very much again for joining us today.